I remember the way the room smelled that night. Flowers, expensive perfume, a hint of candle wax. Everything was supposed to feel perfect. The kind of night you dream about, one you tell yourself will mark the start of forever. And for a moment, I believed it. I believed in her, in us, in the life we had built and planned together. "She looks beautiful," I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else, as I adjusted my tie. "You think so?" My best friend Mark smiled from the corner. "She's glowing." "You're one lucky guy." I nodded, forcing a smile, feeling the warmth in my chest. "Lucky, yes. Lucky to have her, to have this, to have everything." The ceremony had been flawless. Friends and family smiling, the soft rustle of silk, the music filling every pause with anticipation. And then came the vows. Her voice shook slightly, but it carried sincerity, or so I thought. I repeated mine, each word a promise I swore I would keep forever. Later, back in the suite, I noticed a tension in her movements, a strange hesitation I didn't understand. "Are you okay?" I asked, sitting close. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine. Just tired. It's been a long day." I leaned closer. "You've been distant tonight. Did I do something wrong?" "No," she said, voice steady, almost rehearsed. "Everything's perfect. I'm just processing." Her words sounded hollow. I brushed it off, thinking perhaps the weight of the day had caught up to her. I should have trusted my instincts. I should have seen the cracks. Hours later, alone for a moment, I found her phone left carelessly on the bed. A message popped up, one that made my blood run cold. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I know how to make him happy." I froze. My mind raced. Who was he? My stomach churned, betrayal twisting every thought into shards of disbelief. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might burst. I scrolled through the messages, each one more damning than the last. I felt my knees weaken. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. I turned to her, voice shaking. What is this?" She didn't flinch. She looked at me with calm, detached eyes. I guess you found out." "Found out? You've been this whole time?" I couldn't form the words, shock choking them before they could escape. Her lips curved slightly, almost mockingly. "It's not what you think, actually. It's exactly what you think." I stumbled back, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Why? Why would you do this? On our wedding night? After everything?" She shrugged, casual, as if we were discussing the weather. "People change. Circumstances change. They changed. I wanted more." I felt my chest tighten, tears threatening to spill. "More? You mean him?" "Another man. While I trusted you. While I loved you." She met my gaze, cold and unyielding. "Yes, more than you. More than this boring life. More than promises you thought meant anything." I wanted to scream, to break something, to let the fury consume me. Instead, I sat there stunned, numb. The person I had spent years loving, the woman I had vowed to protect, had shattered me with a single truth. The rest of the night passed in a haze. Her presence in the room felt like poison. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't speak. Every movement, every breath reminded me that nothing was as it seemed. My wedding, meant to be the happiest night of my life, had become the moment my world ended. Mark called the next morning. "Hey, you okay? You barely touched the breakfast. You look awful." "Two'll be fine," I lied, voice hollow. How could I explain this to anyone? How could I make someone else understand that the woman I had trusted, the one who had promised forever, had betrayed me before the ink was dry on our vows? Days passed. I moved through them like a ghost. At work, colleagues noticed the change. "You seem distracted," my manager said. "Everything all right at home?" I forced a smile. "Just tired. Wedding stress, you know how it is, but no one could know. No one could feel the depth of the wound she had inflicted. It was a private apocalypse, a betrayal that no sympathetic comment could reach." I replayed her words over and over. I wanted more. That phrase haunted me. It wasn't just the infidelity. It was the realization that all the love, all the planning, all the shared dreams meant nothing to her. I locked myself in the apartment for days, staring at the ceiling, asking the same questions again and again. How could someone I loved, someone I trusted, turn so cold? Was it me? Had I missed signs? And in the quiet, between sobs and broken thoughts, I felt the first flicker of something else. Not hope, not yet, but the first stirrings of resolve. I could not undo what she had done. I could not turn back time, but I could choose what I would do next. She had taken my trust. She had taken my love. She had taken the life I thought I had. But she would not take my future. That, I realized, was still mine. The betrayal had crushed me, yes, but it had also illuminated something essential. The world is cruel, and people are selfish. But so can I be, if I must. The fire inside me, cold and quiet now, promised that I would not stay broken forever. I picked up my phone again, seeing her name flash on the screen. I didn't answer. I wouldn't, not today. Not until I was ready. Tonight, the perfect beginning had ended in betrayal. Tomorrow, I promised myself, would be the start of something else. I would rise. I would rebuild. And one day, she would see what she had destroyed, but far too late to matter. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. That smile that had once meant everything to me, now twisted in the memory of betrayal. The wedding night replayed endlessly, like a broken film reel. Her cold indifference, the messages on her phone, they haunted me more than any nightmare could. I wandered the apartment aimlessly, staring at walls that used to feel like home. Now they felt like a prison. Hey, you okay? Mark's voice came through my phone speaker. I let out a hollow laugh. Yeah, I'm fine. Sure? You've been off. Missed lunch, late to work. Everyone's talking, I clenched the phone. I'm just tired. A lie, the easiest one to tell. Days blurred into each other. I couldn't focus on work. My emails sat unanswered, projects delayed, and colleagues began whispering. Every glance at them felt like judgment, though no one knew the truth. No one could. A package arrived. Her handwriting on the envelope made my chest tighten. I didn't want to open it, but curiosity overpowered me. Inside, a photo from our honeymoon trip, smiling faces, captured moments of joy I could never feel again. I dropped it to the floor. Why does this hurt so much? I whispered to the empty room. My reflection in the window caught me, pale, hollow-eyed, unshaven. I didn't recognize the man staring back. Was this really me? How could I let this destroy everything? Are you even going to answer me? Mark's voice broke my thoughts again. I don't know. I hung up. No one could fix this. No one could understand. The memories clawed at me. Every promise she made, every tender moment, now seemed like a calculated lie. I questioned myself. Had I been blind? Could I have seen this coming? I sat on the edge of my bed, hands over my face, shaking. I trusted you, I muttered. I loved you and you. Silence answered me, empty and unforgiving. I tried to distract myself with work, but my mind refused. Even mundane tasks felt impossible. Emails blurred into unreadable lines. Colleagues' instructions bounced off my consciousness. Focus, I whispered, but the word had no weight. One evening, the office party, a casual gathering for some success celebration, brought her name back. People mentioned her in passing, and I felt nausea rise. She's probably moved on, someone said casually. You should too, I laughed bitterly, almost to myself. Move on? I repeated under my breath. How do you move on from this? Returning home, I picked up the photo again, tracing the smiling faces with trembling fingers. I felt rage, sorrow, disbelief, each emotion burning through me, leaving me raw and exhausted. I can't stay like this, I said aloud, startling myself. The voice was weak, barely more than a whisper, but it was the first time I admitted it. I couldn't remain a victim. I remembered something Mark once said during our college days. Pain doesn't have to break you. It can teach you how strong you are. Strength? I felt no strength in me, only the hollow ache of loss. But maybe, just maybe, he was right. I couldn't undo the betrayal, but I could control what came next. I looked at her messages again, imagining her smirking, thinking she had won. My fists clenched. You don't get to ruin me, I whispered. Not completely. Not forever. Even in the darkness, a spark flickered, a quiet, cold determination. Not revenge, not yet. Just a thought. I would rise. I would reclaim my life. I would rebuild. The days stretched longer, but the first stirrings of clarity arrived in small doses. I organized my desk for the first time in weeks, replied to one email, and even smiled faintly at a colleague's joke. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. At night, I sat by the window, city lights twinkling below, and whispered to myself, I can't change the past. I can't make her love me, but I can make myself stronger. I won't be the same man she betrayed. The road ahead was unclear, and I was still fragile, still grieving. But for the first time since that night, I felt a glimmer of control. I wasn't broken beyond repair. I wasn't finished. I was hurt, yes, shattered even, but somewhere under the debris, the foundation for a new me was forming. A me that would not be defined by betrayal. "I will rise," I whispered again. And this time, it sounded like more than words. It sounded like a promise. The apartment remained silent, a quiet witness to my vow. The night stretched on, heavy with memories, but also with the first fragile light of determination. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. Tomorrow, I decided, would be the start, not of forgetting, not of forgiving, but of reclaiming what was mine, my life, my choices, my strength. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the blinds, the familiar scent of coffee in the kitchen. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, trapped in that endless loop of betrayal. But as I sat up and looked around my apartment, everything was different. It was months before the wedding night. The past lay before me, and for the first time, I held knowledge the world hadn't yet given me. This is real," I whispered, running my hands over the bedspread, remembering every detail, every cruel revelation. I had a second chance, a single opportunity to shape my life differently, and I knew exactly what I couldn't allow. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the aroma grounding me. "I won't be the same man," I murmured. "Not this time. Not ever again." The first steps were small. I focused on my work, arriving early, leaving late, absorbing every task, every challenge, and every lesson I had previously ignored. Colleagues noticed. "Whoa, you've changed," Mark said one morning. "You're more focused." "I had to," I replied, eyes cold but determined. No more mistakes. Every interaction became an opportunity to sharpen my instincts. I watched her from a distance, memorized patterns, tones, moments of weakness. I didn't hate her yet. Hate would come later, but I would never allow trust to be a weapon against me again. "Strategy first," I whispered to myself, recalling advice from an old mentor. Control comes from patience and foresight. I started planning. Investments, career moves, connections, each action deliberate, precise. Every decision I had once taken for granted now carried weight. I could feel power stirring inside me, a controlled, steady flame replacing the chaotic fire of despair. Some days were harder. Memories of the original betrayal surged unexpectedly, her laughter, the messages, the empty promises. I fought back tears, focusing on my new path. "She thought she could break me," I muttered to myself one night, staring at the reflection in the darkened window. "She hasn't even seen the beginning." I reconnected with mentors and allies, those who had always seen potential in me. Their guidance was invaluable, reminding me that patience, intelligence, and timing mattered more than emotion. "Every move counts," one said. "Observe, plan, execute." I absorbed the advice like a sponge, combining it with my personal resolve. The man I had been, naive, trusting, broken, was gone. In his place stood someone sharper, someone aware of both human weakness and opportunity. Even small victories reinforced my confidence. A completed project praised by my boss, a successful negotiation with a client, it all added to a growing sense of control. "I am not powerless anymore," I said one evening, reviewing plans for the coming months. "I will not be caught off guard. I will not be humiliated. I will rise stronger than ever." She was still in my mind, the shadow of past influence hovering faintly, but I refused to let it dominate me. Every memory of her betrayal became a lesson. Every pang of anger transformed into motivation. By the end of the week, I had established routines, goals, and a mindset designed for long-term success. I was no longer reacting. I was anticipating. Life would no longer push me. I would lead it. "I've been given a second chance," I said quietly to the empty room, "and I will use it. Every single moment. No more wasted time. No more vulnerability." The fire inside me was now steady, not consuming, but illuminating. I could feel the transformation solidifying, a foundation strong enough to support both my ambitions and my future revenge. I smiled faintly, a mixture of calm and quiet triumph. The past was still there, but I held the reins now. She had no idea what was coming. This was my rebirth, my chance to rewrite everything, and I would not squander it. I woke early, the sunlight slicing across the floor, and immediately my mind went to work. Tasks, meetings, strategies, everything mattered now. I wasn't just doing my job. I was observing, learning, planning. Each conversation, each glance from a colleague was data. I refused to be caught off guard again. "Good morning, Mark," I said as I entered the office, voice steady. "Wow, you're early," he replied, noticing the change in my posture, my energy. "You look different." "I've got a lot to catch up on," I said casually, though inside, every thought was precise and focused. The office felt like a chessboard, and I was learning the rules faster than anyone. I noticed patterns, who deferred to whom, who whispered in corners, who was ambitious enough to overstep. Richard, once a friendly competitor, began showing cracks. His emails were pointed, subtle digs masked as advice. "I hope you're not overextending yourself," he wrote one morning. "It'd be a shame if a project fell through because of distraction." I smiled faintly. He thought he could unsettle me. I printed the email, highlighted his wording, and scheduled a meeting with the client he tried to mislead. I quietly provided them context, ensuring their trust remained solid. When Richard approached later, he looked confused. "You're handling it?" he asked, trying to mask panic. "I always handle my responsibilities," I said evenly. "Thanks for the concern." Meanwhile, my wife. She still called occasionally, each message dripping with subtle guilt or manipulation. "I miss you," one text read. "Can we talk?" I deleted it immediately, feeling a flicker of satisfaction. She had thought I'd crumble again, thought I'd beg. Not this time. "You've lost that control," I whispered to the empty room. Colleagues began to notice the shift. "You've got confidence now," one remarked. "We didn't know you had it in you." "Confidence comes from experience," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. But inside, I knew it came from something deeper: knowledge, strategy, and survival. Each day, I carved more space for myself. Projects that once bored me now became opportunities to demonstrate competence, precision, and foresight. When Richard tried to manipulate a report to make me look incompetent, I had already anticipated it. I corrected the errors, added improvements, and presented it with confidence. The board noticed, and murmurs of my competence spread. "Looks like someone's stepping up," Mark whispered later. I only smiled. Stepping up wasn't enough. I was building leverage, establishing authority quietly, decisively. I watched Richard's frustration grow. He'd underestimated the man he had thought weak, distracted, broken. Even small victories mattered. A colleague praised my handling of a client issue. Another mentioned the improved workflow I implemented. Validation was subtle, but it fueled the fire. "Don't let it get to you," Mark said one afternoon, noticing my calm, controlled demeanor. "Richard's trying everything he can." "I know," I replied, sipping coffee. "And I know exactly what to do." By the end of the week, the balance had begun to shift. I wasn't just surviving. I was taking the initiative. Richard's attempts to sabotage me became opportunities to highlight his incompetence. My wife's messages grew more desperate, but I ignored them, feeling the power settle into my chest like armor. One evening, reviewing my plans, I spoke aloud to no one. "They can't manipulate me. They can't intimidate me. This is my life, and I'm taking control." The realization was intoxicating. Every small win, every strategic move reinforced the growing truth. I was no longer the man they thought I was. I had transformed, and the office, the workplace, and even my personal life were starting to feel the ripple effects. Richard's glances became sharper, his emails more calculated, but I was always a step ahead. My reputation strengthened quietly, subtly, until it was undeniable. People sought my opinion, my guidance. They noticed my focus, my decisiveness. The man who had been hurt and humiliated was gone. In his place stood someone resilient, strategic, and untouchable. At night, I sat in the dark apartment, looking at the skyline, and whispered, "I've been given a second chance. And I'm making it count. No one will ever have power over me again." The spark of revenge hadn't fully ignited, but the groundwork was laid. Every observation, every calculated move brought me closer to a future where I controlled everything. They could feel it even if they didn't understand it yet. I closed my laptop and leaned back, exhaling slowly. The power shift had begun, subtle but unstoppable. I had risen through the ranks, not just in title but in influence, perception, and control. and soon the world would see the man I had become. I arrived at the office earlier than usual, the quiet hum of fluorescent lights greeting me. The tension in the air was palpable. I could feel it even before seeing them. My wife's messages had become more insistent, desperate in tone. Richard, on the other hand, had been sending cryptic emails trying to destabilize me. Today, it all came to a head. "Morning," I said to Mark as I passed. He gave a slight nod, a knowing look in his eyes. "You're ready," he whispered. "I'm always ready," I replied evenly. A meeting had been called. Richard was already seated, smirking, confident in his perceived upper hand. My wife, of course, had tried texting me earlier, pleading, guilt-laden, manipulative. I ignored it. I had no place for her games anymore. As the meeting began, Richard presented his report with subtle digs aimed at undermining my credibility. "I thought we'd go over the Q3 projections," he said, eyes briefly flicking toward me. "I'm sure you've prepared something?" I leaned forward, a smile barely visible. "Actually, Richard, I have prepared," I said. "And I've also verified the numbers you presented. There are a few inconsistencies." The room shifted. Colleagues exchanged glances. Richard's confident smirk faltered. "You what?" he stammered. "I double-checked your data. Here?" I handed the printouts highlighting errors and omissions that would have cost the company significantly. These mistakes could have been disastrous if I hadn't caught them. Whispers filled the room. My superiors' expressions hardened as they reviewed the evidence. I didn't pause, keeping my tone calm but firm. "I suggest we correct the issues immediately and ensure accountability moving forward." Richard's face reddened. This isn't fair," he said, though his voice lacked its usual authority. "Fairness isn't the concern here," I replied. "Accuracy and integrity are." Later, my wife appeared outside my office, hesitant, teary. She knocked softly. "Can we talk?" "Please, I just want to explain I didn't move. I didn't even glance up." "There's nothing to explain," I said, voice low and controlled. "Your time to manipulate me is over. You've had your chance and you've lost it, permanently." Her shoulders slumped. She knew it. I could see it in her eyes. She was powerless. Meanwhile, Richard fumed in the corner, his previous arrogance crumbling. I continued presenting the revised projections, highlighting improvements and solutions, while subtly emphasizing my leadership. Colleagues whispered praise, noting my decisiveness and competence. After the meeting, Mark approached. "You handled that perfectly," he said. "I didn't just handle it," I replied. "I anticipated it. Every move, every word. Control is about foresight, Mark. Always foresight." Richard stormed out, muttering threats that no longer held weight. He had underestimated me, and now everyone could see it. The subtle power balance had shifted entirely. Later, I received another text from my wife. "Please, can we talk?" I deleted it immediately. She had no hold on me. None. Sitting back in my office, I reflected on the day. The tension, the confrontation, the exposure of deceit, it all confirmed my transformation. I was no longer the man she could manipulate, nor the colleague Richard could intimidate. Today was just the beginning, I whispered to myself, staring out the window. I've reclaimed control and no one will take it from me again. Small victories compounded. Employees approached me with questions, seeking guidance. I offered solutions confidently, knowing that my reputation had shifted permanently. I had become someone decisive, respected, and untouchable. The office that once felt suffocating now seemed mine. I walked the halls with quiet authority, sensing eyes following me, acknowledgement and respect finally evident. That evening, I looked at the city lights from my office. The past was still there, memories lingering, but they held no power over me. I had faced the manipulators, exposed the deceit, and asserted my strength. "This is what it feels like," I murmured, "to be in control, to stand unshaken, to rise above betrayal. No texts, no threats, no subtle attempts could shake me now." Karma had played out naturally. The manipulators were exposed, their influence destroyed, and I was free. I turned off the lights and left the office, feeling the quiet satisfaction of someone who had finally claimed what was rightfully theirs. I arrived at the office feeling the calm of someone who knew the battlefield. Everything was under my observation, every project, every conversation, every subtle glance. I had anticipated every move Richard might try, every desperate text my wife might send, and every potential slip from those around me. Mark came over. a hint of admiration in his voice. "You've really changed." "Everyone notices." "I had to," I replied evenly. "Control isn't given. It's taken, maintained, and protected." Richard appeared in the conference room, face tight with frustration. "You think you can take everything from me?" He spat, trying to maintain authority. "I didn't think," I said calmly. "I knew, and I acted. Your manipulation, your schemes, they've been documented. Colleagues, clients, and superiors have all seen the truth." He froze, realizing the scope of his failure. I could see the panic growing in his eyes. You set me up," he said, voice wavering. "Not set up," I corrected. "Exposed. Actions have consequences, Richard. You underestimated me at every turn." Meanwhile, my wife had sent another text pleading for attention, remorse dripping from every word. I ignored it. Her influence was gone. "She doesn't matter anymore," I murmured to myself. "None of it does." During a meeting, I presented the latest project results. Everything was flawless, each decision strategically positioned. Colleagues nodded, some quietly congratulating me. Richard tried to interject, but I countered with evidence of his past errors, showing how my adjustments salvaged outcomes. Murmurs filled the room. I watched his arrogance crumble. This isn't fair," Richard stammered, eyes darting around the room. "Fairness isn't the point," I said firmly. "Integrity, accuracy, and accountability are. You failed in everyone." "Later," Mark whispered, "you've really taken control. It's impressive." "I've only done what was necessary," I replied. "To survive, to rise, to claim what's mine." The office dynamics had shifted entirely. Where once I had been overlooked, now my voice carried weight. Where once Richard had intimidated, now he was exposed, cautious, and irrelevant in the eyes of others. The balance of power had decisively shifted. In my private office, I reviewed reports, emails, and strategic notes. Every document, every interaction reinforced my growing dominance. I had turned every attempt to manipulate me into evidence, every threat into leverage. A colleague entered quietly. "Everyone's impressed with how you handled Richard's schemes." "No one could have done it better." "Good," I said, returning my focus to the documents. "They need to see that competence isn't a gift. It's strategy, planning, and execution." I sent out the final emails of the day, confirming projects and delegating responsibilities. Everything flowed efficiently, predictably. I had created a system where mistakes, deceit, and manipulation could no longer take hold. By evening, the office was quiet. I sat at my desk, looking at the skyline, reflecting. The man who had been vulnerable, betrayed, and shaken was gone. In his place was someone precise, confident, and untouchable. Richard had learned the hard way. Greed and deceit only lead to downfall. My wife, a shadow of past mistakes, had no power. Every move I had made, every calculated decision had brought me here. Absolute control. "I've claimed what's mine," I whispered to the empty room. "No one can take it from me." I stood, stretching slightly, feeling the weight and satisfaction of mastery. Everything was aligned: career, reputation, influence. I had transformed fully from the man who had once been a victim to the master of my destiny. Walking out, I paused, glancing at the office lights reflecting on the polished floor. "This is what it feels like," I said softly. "To stand without fear, without doubt, with everything in control." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. I sat behind the massive oak desk, the evening sunlight casting long shadows across the office. The name on the door bore my signature now, a silent testament to the journey I had undertaken. Every corner of this space reflected control, precision, and hard-earned authority. A notification pinged. My wife's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it briefly before deleting it. One last attempt to reach me, to pull me back into the past, but she held no power here, not anymore. Her words, her pleas, even her regrets, they meant nothing. I leaned back, letting myself breathe for the first time in months. "I've made it," I whispered. Everything they thought would break me. It didn't. It made me stronger. Mark knocked lightly and entered, a small smile on his face. "Everything's running smoothly. The team respects your decisions finally. They see you for the leader you've become." I nodded, not taking my eyes off the skyline. "Good. Respect is earned, Mark. And it's not just about authority. It's about consistency, foresight, and integrity." He hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever think about what happened?" I allowed a pause. "Of course," I said finally. "I think about it as a lesson. Betrayal, manipulation, greed, they all tried to define me. They failed. Every setback taught me something. Every pain made me more strategic, more resilient, more aware." The office was quiet, the hum of the city outside a reminder that the world continued, indifferent to personal triumphs or failures. I felt a strange calm knowing that my life now moved on my terms. A memory flickered. Her face, the betrayal, the sleepless nights. But it felt distant, like looking at someone else's story. "She doesn't matter," I muttered. "Not anymore. She was a chapter. I'm the author now." I reviewed the company reports, each carefully optimized, each decision deliberate. Every move I had made since waking from my rebirth had been purposeful. It wasn't just about revenge or proving a point. It was about reclaiming my life, my identity, and my power. Mark glanced at the documents and nodded approvingly. "Everything's aligned. The clients, the projections. It's flawless," I allowed myself a small, confident smile. "Flawless isn't luck. It's planning, observation, and execution." A soft ping interrupted my thoughts again. Another message from her. This time she begged to meet, to talk, to reconcile. I read it once and deleted it. My hands rested on the desk, steady. No anger, no hesitation, no temptation. I had walked through fire and emerged unscathed. I turned my attention to the city outside the window. The skyline seemed different now, less intimidating, more like a canvas of possibilities. Everything I had lost had returned tenfold, not because I wished it so, but because I had built it step by step, decision by decision. "Control isn't something you are given," I murmured. "It's something you claim and protect." Mark shifted slightly, almost as if sensing the finality of my transformation. "You've truly changed." "Not just here," he gestured around the office, "but everything about you." I nodded slowly. I had to. There was no other way forward. If I stayed who I was, I'd still be trapped. "Now I decide everything, my choices, my path, my destiny." The sun dipped lower, casting an amber glow. I exhaled, feeling a serenity I hadn't known in years. I had confronted betrayal, survived manipulation, and transcended pain. I was no longer defined by others' actions, no longer a pawn. I was the master of my fate. As I stood and walked to the window, I thought about the journey. Every sleepless night, every pang of despair, every moment of doubt, it had forged me. I didn't need her forgiveness, his acknowledgement, or anyone else's approval. I needed only myself, and that was enough. The city lights began to twinkle as dusk settled. I could hear the distant hum of life, indifferent yet somehow reassuring. My name on the building, my decisions in motion, my future unwritten. I was free. "Here's to the future," I whispered, my reflection in the glass staring back. I am not the man I was. I am everything I choose to be. No past, no regrets. No one else could touch this version of me. I had been reborn, not through chance, but through resolve, strategy, and sheer determination. The world lay before me, vast and open, and I walked forward with unshakable certainty.